Welcome to Kaleidoscope, where we are positive, daring, different in everything we bring you. Today, we are at the Degal Doruwa Cave Temple in Amunugama, which houses lots of intriguing artworks dating to the Kandyan Kingdom. The cave itself was hollowed out of a rock, and the temple is constructed where two rocks meet. A huge thank you to our wonderful partners on the show, Skills for Inclusive Growth and Australian Aid, Srilanka Live, CDB, The Morning Newspaper, Park Street Gourmet and Zip Zip. If you like Kaleidoscope, subscribe and follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn. And our Valentine hamper winner from Park Street Gourmet stepped into Park Street Gourmet and got her Valentine hamper. Here she is.
You can now start a CDB iDeposit digital fixed deposit and experience a range of special benefits from CDB.
Looking back at the week that was on CDB Snapshot, Sri Lanka's inflation in January declines to 53.2% from December's 59.2% year-on-year. China's Exim Bank gives Sri Lanka an extension on debt servicing due in 2022 and 2023. Sri Lanka will repay loans worth $2.6 billion due in the first half of this year, aligned with debt suspension plans. India's Adani Green Energy got the green light for a $442 million investment in wind power plants in Sri Lanka. The threat of a drought looms in Italy as the usually flooded canals of Venice dry up. 200,000 chocolate eggs were stolen from an industrial park in the UK. Talk about a sweet theft.
You focus on your goals. We will take care of the risks. Srilanka Life.
Welcome, this is our Srilanka Life News Capsule. President Ranil Wickremesinghe's vision is to transform Sri Lanka's economy into an export-oriented first world model in 25 years' time when Sri Lanka celebrates the centenary of independence. His plan is to have a private sector-led economy built on state-of-the-art tech and fueled by renewable energy. Today on the Pethiagoda pages is scientist, conservationist and public policy advocate Rohan Pethiagoda, and we chat about building an economy on money alone. Rohan, the president's vision is to build a private sector-led economy, but the private sector is built on profit, on making money, and they're answerable to shareholders. Now, can an economy be built on money alone?
So the idea that an economy is built on money alone, of course, is a fallacy. An economy has to be built on much more than money. It's got to be built on institutions. It's got to be built on the ease of doing business, which is something that Sri Lanka is lagging behind on. And we're already handicapped by having these phenomenally high interest rates. So borrowing for economic growth is very difficult. We're having inflation at 50%, which makes everything very difficult. High rates of income tax, high rates of VAT, and so on. And on top of this is a bunch of red tape that really makes it difficult for exporters to function. So I think the place to start would be seeing how government is holding the economy back. Because remember, economies always boom. It's only governments that hold them back. And releasing the economy from the shackles of bureaucracy.
So if we are to aspire to this 25 years from now, of course, what is the key thing that needs to be in place?
There's only one thing you need to have in place, and that is to deal with your fiscal deficit. We've got this massive 2.5 trillion rupee deficit this year, last year, it'll be more next year. $6 billion that's holding us back. Because we can't fund that, and government is not willing to bridge that. So government keeps printing money to bridge the deficit, or it keeps borrowing money to bridge the deficit, and then you can't pay the loans back. So basically, eliminating the deficit is the biggest challenge.
While the country is reeling from a 66% electricity hike, which ups the manufacturing industry's cost significantly, what is surprising is that the submissions made by the apparel industry to the Public Utilities Commission prior to the hike was more or less ignored. With me today is the Deputy Chairman of the Sri Lanka Apparel Exporters Association, Jeevith Senaratne, and he details what these submissions are. Jeevith, while the hike is debilitating to the industry, in summary, what were the submissions made to the PUCSL?
Firstly, we feel there's an overestimation of demand. And this comes from the fact that since the last tariff increase, Sri Lanka's demand for electricity has gone down. And if you take industries like ours, our order situation is projected to be down by at least 15 to 20% over the next 6 months as well. Secondly, global coal prices have fallen since the last tariff increase. How is it that since the last tariff increase, those have come down, demand has come down, but you're still projecting a tariff increase at the same time? Electricity costs used to be around 1.5% of local cost of production. With the recent tariff increases, that has gone up to about 4.19 to 4.5% of local cost of production as well for most entities. The tariff increases themselves have caused an absolute dollar term increase of about 165% increase in cost. So on this backdrop, we feel that we have become uncompetitive compared to our regional peers. Then the fourth point that we wanted to bring out was a big part of our incentive to bring vertical development in fabric mills was the fact that we had off-peak tariffs when they could operate on their 24-hour shifts. But when you move to these new tariffs that have been implemented, the off-peak tariff does not really create an incentive to manufacture those styles because it is extremely expensive as well, and the increase is over 400% compared to where it was previously. Lastly, when it came to renewables, industries like apparel have continually invested in renewable energy, in solar projects, etc. And over the last few months, we have seen that the CEB's payments to those projects has been curtailed as well. Can firms then move from net plus contracts to net metering contracts in this current backdrop? And then finally, the last one we had was on power wheeling, where JAF has continually been lobbying about allowing power wheeling in Sri Lanka. Unfortunately, this seems to have fallen on deaf ears, and we don't have an answer as to why it's not allowed yet, as we feel that this could stimulate the growth of renewable energy investment in this country going forward.
And here's what our markets looked like this week. It's positive news from the Colombo Stock Exchange. The all-share price index moved up by 4.8%, but the average daily turnover was still lower than 2 billion rupees. WTI oil dropped to $74 per barrel on worries that high inflation worldwide would lead to a drop in demand. And gold continued to fall, posting at $1,830 per ounce on expectations that interest rates will go higher to check high inflation. It's Black History Month. Nigerian visual artist Malik Afegbua showcased an unusual fashion show, the Elders series, inspired by his mother, where he used groundbreaking artificial intelligence to challenge stereotypes around the perception of the elderly. Up next on S4IG Let's Talk is the lawman turned culinary expert. It's been a while since we celebrated some good food, and today on Kaleidoscope's S4IG Let's Talk, we have the co-founder of the ultra-successful chain of restaurants in London, Hoppers, Karan Gokani, and he's launching his new cookbook, Hoppers, the Cookbook. He's been a food critic and a writer for Condé Nast, National Geographic and The Telegraph. So I've taken a look at the book, and really it's a celebration of the uniqueness of South Asian cuisine. Sri Lankan cuisine is very much in the book. Welcome, Karan. You're on a very interesting aspect of your career, I would say, launching of Hoppers, the cookbook. Now, let me just go back to the beginning. From a law career to cooking, quite a change. What inspired you to get into the culinary arts full time?
It's just something I always knew I had a passion for. I think what kind of scared me in the beginning was you have to be a server or you have to be a chef. And then I think what happened over time after I studied law and then went and staged and interned and spent some time with people is I realized it's not that black and white, and there are a lot of things in the middle, and that's exactly where I find myself today. It's this sort of creative role where I dabble in the kitchen, but I've got the great people with great experience, running that. I dabble on the front of house in the experience, but I've got good people running it. So it's exactly what a film director does. You bring your talent, and then your job is to extract the talent and get them to work towards your vision, but also make sure it's a shared vision over time.
Now, this is your debut cookbook. What was the major inspiration behind it?
First, initially as a restaurateur, you're very guarded about your recipes. That, if I lose my recipes, I've lost everything. Someone's going to make the same restaurant. Then you come to realize, and especially in lockdown, talking to friends and other people, realize that actually sharing the recipes is a great way to get out there and get people to come back in because they might cook them, but they're not going to bother to cook entire menus. So it becomes a great marketing tool, but also a great way to tell your story and share a little bit of your story in any corner of the world. It's a celebration of our journey, and in a sense I say it's Sri Lanka through my lens and through now what I call the hopper's lens.
What is it about Sri Lankan cuisine that actually differentiates from Indian cuisine?
But what I found fascinating is that the food changes so dramatically as you come down from Jaffna all the way down south to Galle. And I've done the country, so many regions of it. I find obviously the northern Jaffna food is quite similar to South Indian. When I say South Indian, more Tamil food. Very hot, very rich. The spices are quite different, drier curries, less of the aromatics, more fenugreek. But then when you come down, it's really fascinating how things take a turn. Black pork curry was one of the first things I ate when I came to Sri Lanka on holiday. And I was blown away by it. And similarly, some of the other curries, even a red chicken curry, has that lemongrass in it, has a little pandan in it, rampe. And I find those influences are almost influences that are coming from East Asia. Then you've got the beautiful burger influence. Lump rice, one of my favorite dishes.
Do you think Sri Lanka markets her cuisine well enough?
What tends to happen is that people look to the West and they say, oh wow, you know, this is how they do it. And to make Sri Lankan food cool, you've got to now create like a variation of a thing, or you add a spice on top of a Western dish, or do a pasta, or do whatever it might be. You don't need to do that. You know, I find, go back to your roots. There's so much we've lost. Go back to your roots, find real recipes, try and better the way of cooking, and celebrate the cuisine and this beautiful richness of the culture, its people, its stories, and people will come to you automatically.
So using this uniqueness of Sri Lankan cuisine, what can Sri Lanka actually do to maybe make Sri Lanka gourmet capital for this part of the world?
Becoming a food capital is a bit of a, you know, people think you have to bring worldwide chefs in and you have to have these big takeovers and things. I honestly feel when I come here, I look for, as a foreigner, I want to get authentic, real experiences. And I find sometimes that's lacking because everyone is emulating the West. I feel do what you do best, celebrate your culture, celebrate your cuisine, go dig deep and ask your grandmothers for recipes, and I want Sri Lankan cooks to be proud and cook their food.
Immerse yourself in gourmet luxury. Park Street Gourmet is your single stop for gastronomic indulgence. Visit us any day of the week for some decadent shopping. The one in Sri Lanka is naturally beautiful but scarred by 3 decades of war. People no longer remember the verdant landscape that they called home. I'm at Paradise Road Galleries today with artist Sundaram Anujan, who lived through nearly all his life in the war. And he took the memories of northern Sri Lanka, used his creative genes on these canvases to create those memories and bring to life what he remembers of his homeland. Anujan, these are absolutely beautiful. It's also very emotive. It's a lot of memories that you have put together. So, when you were putting this together, what actually went through your mind?
Yes, it is everything's from my bottom of the heart, what I have experienced. First of all, I want to tell that memories is very strong. I cannot erase the memories. I couldn't erase the memories because that incident is has given lots of effect for me.
What do you want us to know about your memories?
When the people seen these pictures, they will see through their feelings, their experience, their taste. Someone seen this picture from who got the last war. They can understand these feelings, this taste, this effect. That people can understand. Others just they will see it is as a practice. It is as a artwork.
And we'll be back next week starting our International Women's Month specials. See you then.